Hey everyone, this is Russell AR from SpeedSourceFPV here to tell you about the brand new Super 50, give you a quick build tutorial, and I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. Instead of just kind of doing the frame, I'm actually going to do a full build all the way from frame to full flight mode here. So this is this is one I've been beating around. This is the Super 50 I've been practicing with, so obviously it looks a little beat up. We're going to give you a brand new fresh build right here. So let's take a quick look. Here's some of the components, a little bit extra components in here just because we have, not just the main build, but we also have some extra top plates. You have our standard thin top plate, which is primarily made for analog. It's the lightest weight version, only a little bit lighter than the HD0 version rather. So these are very similar, about 0.3 grams difference, so not much difference. So probably honestly doesn't really matter unless you're really trying to save a lot of weight, but I run both. Sometimes I run this on the analog, sometimes I run this one, but for HD0, definitely run this one. This is Nylon X for both these 3mm thick, and then we also have a carbon fiber version. So this is 2mm thick. It adds about a gram over the Nylon X. I think it's very similar strength, maybe a little bit stronger. So if you prefer that, you can have a carbon fiber top plate. Not much more expensive and doesn't add much more weight, then it can give you peace of mind as well. You can actually put your HD0 VTX right up in there and stick it on that top plate. I would not do that with a Nylon X version. Those do bend a little bit on purpose, bend before they break. So a little bit different strength characteristics between the two there. So one other thing I want to show you is we have two different arm options. We have the 5mm standard arm with a 16x16 motor mounting, 16mm diameter. We also have a 4mm version right here. Differences here, you actually have a 12x12 option. So you want to run ultralight on this, or motors that have 12x12 mounting. Running on these, it's going to be a lot lighter. It's about 45 grams, 44 grams dry, I believe, somewhere in there. This one's about 51 grams dry with the 5mm arm. So saves you some weight. It's plenty of strength for an ultralight build, and you're going to be able to run those 12x12 motors. You actually can run 16x16. I have run standard 2207 motors on these, and it's actually pretty strong. You definitely want to run braces with it. It's around 51 grams, so pretty much the same as these, but you can have brace tops to run 4mm arms, and it actually works out pretty well, to be honest. Another first, for SpeedSource here, I actually have a variable camera mount. So this is about 45 to 55 degrees. Standard is, works really well on the Pred 5, but you can use it on pretty much any camera. I have my HD0 camera in there. You can put a RunCam Nano in there. Again, it's got to be a nano camera, but it can pretty much any nano camera can fit in here, and you can run at 45 to 55 degrees angle on that. But for me, I prefer a 50 degree mount for my open class builds. Fixed mount, just because don't want to have to worry about it moving or something when you crash. Just gives you peace of mind. You're going to go in there, it's going to be the exact same place every time. So let's get to the build real quick. Don't want to take any more of your time. So first things first, you have our two primary plates. Bottom plate 2mm thick. We have our 1.5mm mid plate right here, nice and strong. Put these together, and you take these arms, and they're kind of interlocking into each other. So you just flip one over, slide them in just like that, and it's going to be strong. It's going to hold them in that direction, but it's also going to hold them back and forth too. So put those in there. Take your plates, put one over the other, and just match up the arrows. Doesn't really matter which is front to back, and I'll show you why in a minute, but front to back doesn't matter. Just match up these two kind of teardrops right here. I call them the arrows, teardrops, whatever you want to call them. Just make sure they're both pointing the same direction. Match them up, and go ahead and put your M4 by 16mm screw. Again, this is all M4 hardware, so very strong and a lot easier to get your driver on there without stripping it and not having to worry about them bending as much because they're so strong. I actually have not bent one of these yet. Not saying it's not going to happen, but I've not bent one of these yet. So, and then go ahead and put your nut on there. These are aluminum nuts, so nice and light, but they also have the nylon in there. So it's a nylock nut. So you put this in there, you tighten down, it's going to be very hard for it to loosen up. You're not going to have to worry about like standoff. It's going to spin a little bit. Arms do loosen up over time. It's going to have a lot less chance. It's going to mitigate a lot of risk of these loosening up on you over time. So go ahead. I take a driver like this. This is a 9/32 socket head. Put that on there. Take your 2.5mm driver. Just going to run in there. Not going to do it too tight right now. Just nice and snug. Just like that. Nice and easy. And then we'll go ahead and put the other one on there. And we'll do that for the rest of these. Alright, once you get all 4 of these on here, one more thing I wanted to say actually, just make sure, these are counterboard, so make sure you have the bottom of the plate that has counterbore in it, so these actually sink in a little bit, not sure if you can tell, but they sink in a little bit to the plate. It adds a little bit of height out here, so you make sure you get your standoffs on, and at the same time, make sure we don't have to use longer screws to get in there, and that's going to obviously add a little bit of weakness up there, makes the screw a little easier to bend, so make them nice and short, put this on there, and then it's going to be nice and strong. So last thing here, after you get them snug down there, we want to go ahead and we're going to crank them down. So what we're going to do is going to go like this. Make sure it's nice and tight. And then go ahead and twist as hard as you can. Crank this all the way down in there. Not super hard, but pretty hard in there. It's going to make sure it's tightened up against it and it's not going to move. Make sure these arms are sandwiched together really nice. Okay, so we got those on there. They're very tight on there. Should not move very easily at all. So another thing here, you know, sometimes when you hit pretty hard, these do move a little bit. So if that happens, if your arms move, it's not square on here. It's not a big deal. It's still in there pretty strong. It's not going to affect your flight performance. Well, it will until you move it back. So what you got to do is you just got to loosen this up a little bit. You know, loosen each of these up, pull it back to where it is, then crank it back down, and it's gonna be good to go, just like that. It shouldn't happen too often, but every time you have a pretty good lick, you know, hitting the gate or hitting the ground pretty hard, it might move a little bit. It does reduce the risk of the arm breaking, but at the same time, obviously, we don't want it moving. It's gonna happen, but not too often. So, one more thing on here. You know, these arms, they have a natural breaking point in them. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but essentially, you know, on the SLX, a lot of frames, the arm will break or right around here. Kind of makes it a pain in the butt to get out, and at the same time, your wires, you usually tape them down or zip tie them down out here. So the arm breaks right here. It's going to rip that off. It's going to pull all that strength, and it's going to pull right on your pad. Sometimes it rips them off, and you lose a 4-month ESC just because you have a pad that got ripped off, or it rips off the motors at the wire here, or at the stator, at the motor wires, rips them off, and then you lose a whole stator, lose a motor, just like that. So kind of mitigates that. It makes it break right here. You can tape it or zip tie it on each side. It's going to act as a tether. I'll show you that in a little bit. You don't have to worry as much about ripping motor wires or ripping pads off of your quad here, off your ESC. So the last thing here before we get started on the next part of the build. So these nuts are optional. If you want to slam your build, you want to save a little bit of weight, take that nut off, just put the standoff right on there, just like that. You'll have a slam build. It gives you 20 millimeters of height, so you can easily put 2 in there, maybe a full stack in there, and then you can actually save almost 2 grams. So that'll put the frame right around 50. Well, actually 49. It's 51 grams, so take it down to around 49 grams. If you want to save another gram, we do have a few of these left over. These are countersunk screws I was using. The issue is they strip a little bit too easily. These socket head screws are really strong. Don't have to worry about those. These strip a little bit too easily. If you're careful, you can use them. They work really well. They save you about a gram, so you can technically save 3 grams on this build, have the exact same amount of strength, just as strong. You'd be around the 48 gram range, so pretty crazy right there. Just 2 more things I want to talk about here before we get into the build. One thing I forgot here was, you know, these screws, these top plate screws, if you need these, just shoot me a message, and we have a couple of these left over, so I can give those to you. So I'd like to see what you guys can do with it, see how light we can get these builds. I mean, 48 grams, a slam stack with these top plate screws, probably one of the lightest frames out there. You know, obviously same strength, but the other thing I wanted to say is these holes right here, you can see we don't actually need those, so those are just in kind of for peace of mind. If you're kind of worried about these moving, like I was talking about earlier, just put a screw in there. Use a 12 millimeter screw. I think that'll be the best one. Put a nut on there. You can even use an aluminum screw. Aluminum nut doesn't need to be very high strength, just needs to be in there. Obviously the carbon in there takes the most of the hit when it goes back and forth. It shouldn't even really need the screws, but if you want them in there, if you're having issues with it, or if you just need peace of mind, throw screws in there and you'll be good to go. Alright, so next step on the build here, we're going to put the stack screws in. Again, we have these open holes in here. The head fits right in there. Do not have to put the screws in before you assemble the frame. Just put those in there. Slide them right in. You're good to go. Alright, now I know a lot of people like to put nuts on top of these and tighten them right down. I do not like to do that. I like to put these little rubber grommets on here, little washers, rubber. I think they're about 2 millimeters tall. You can find them on Amazon. I like to put these on there. They actually hold the screws in a little bit so they won't fall out. And they add just enough gap. As long as you're running an ESC with the JST connector on top, you should be able to slam it down like this. Just make sure that, I'll show you in a second, but make sure none of your components are touching the carbon or close to the carbon. If that happens, just take a piece of thicker double-sided VHB tape and put that in there, and it will protect it. Honestly, just put it up against the components of the ESC, slam it down on there. It puts a nice little soft spot on it. It actually helps reduce vibration in the ESC a little bit. So put it on there just like that. And next, we're going to grab our Hobbywing 40 amp ESC. Huge shout out to the bits here. So if you guys want 20% off this, you can buy them individually, or you can actually go with the stack. It's probably the best deal. You get a bundle deal, 20% off. Use code DABITS, so DA_bits, BITS, on Hobbywing.com. Get 20% off your stack, and you can you can use one of these. They work really well. Actually testing one with AM32 on it right now. Not working too well. Don't know what the issue is. Gonna keep trying that, but this one I'm gonna leave Bell Heli 32 on it, and use that for the build here. All right, so the best part about this frame here, one of my favorite parts actually, is these holes are actually offset. So sometimes you need to put your ESC this way, and that's primarily based around the Foxeer Slim 60 amp, because that's a very awkward ESC. It's not centered. All these ones are a little awkward too with the big pads on it, but you have plenty of room in there. So if your ESC doesn't fit this way, flip it around, put it this way, exact same configuration either way. Your arms are centralized both ways, so just the ESC holes are offset. I'm going to put it on this way because that's going to give me the most room for my build, and we're going to just slide this ESC right on here. Alright, just like that. One thing with the Hobbywing ESCs, I might have to take these off, but you can try this. Just tuck these, actually this might work, tuck these wires in here, just like this. Tuck them under the capacitor, and then I'll just go ahead and put the XT60 on the end of this. So seeing if this will fit in here. Haven't had much luck in the past, but haven't really tried it this way. So the bits told me this. So put these in here, tuck it in there, and you're good to go. So the next thing to do is, once you get this all the way down, look in here and make sure that you don't have any components touching or even close to the carbon. The biggest thing to look for is generally capacitor. So let me pull this back off. You see this capacitor right here on the bottom. These are generally stick down the lowest. They're going to be what touches your carbon. That's going to cause a short. You don't want that to happen. So if you have a capacitor that is close, or any other components, just put some of that double-sided tape on there, and press it in there, and it should protect it. You should not short that way. I've done it a lot on my builds. So I like to slam this down. I like to keep my stack as low as possible. So we're going to put that back on there. And the nice thing about this, just kind of works out that the capacitor is actually sticking through this hole right here. So there's no risk of it touching the carbon unless it has a very big hit, which we do not want to have to worry about that. So should be good to go. Got this slammed down on here. Got the wires are looking a little tight. Might change those, but they're working for now, so we're going to leave it. And the next thing I like to do is actually put nuts on top of the ESC. So that does two things. That tightens your ESC down onto your stack, helps reduce vibration through the stack. I know if you've seen Chris Rosser's video on stack mounting, this is actually another way. This is how I do it. Haven't tested it, but I haven't seen a lot of noise doing it this way. So works really well. Just going to run that on there. I'm going to tighten them down pretty hard, not super hard, nice and snug to keep it on there without it moving. Alright, so I got the nut started on here. What I'm not going to actually do now is these are going on a little harder, so I'm actually going to grab my other driver. If you haven't tried these MIP bits, these are the best bits out there. They are really good, and it's very hard to strip the screw head out with these, especially when you're using 2.5 millimeters. So I'm going to put that on there, and I'm just going to take this and I'm just going to run this down in here. What I like to do is kind of go all the way down, get it until it's snug on there. You see the ESC is just touching. This one's trying to pull up a little bit. We'll go on there so the nut is just snug on the ESC, and then go a little bit further. You can see it squished down just a little bit on there, and that's going to be nice and tight on there for you. So we're going to have to push these XT60 leads back in. I'm gonna tighten this one, push it down, and then tighten it down just like that, and we'll be good to go. And you can check that this is right by looking across. It should be parallel with your mid plate here, so just take a look. If it's not parallel, go ahead and tighten the side down that's sticking up. You can see back on this side actually, this back corner is sticking up a little bit, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and tighten that down just a little bit further until it gets parallel with the front. And after that, I'm just going to take a peek through and make sure that no components are close, probably within a millimeter or two of the carbon plate there, because we don't want those to touch. It's going to cause a short. So if you see anything's close, pull it back off, put some tape under there, and you'll be good to go. Next step is going to be the motor. So right here, I'm using the No brand 1960 heads-up motors. Essentially, familiar with these, I think they're going to be able to be just as competitive on these bigger tracks like IO and Champs this year, and put out a lot of speed. So I'm going to put these on, and I'm just going to start off by putting 2 screws in here. I'm not going to go too crazy, so I actually use aluminum screws for these. Let's see if I have any handy right now. So I do have some old ones here. Get these off of Fastener Express. These are aluminum. Use 8mm screws for the motors. I'm just going to put one in right now. Because I'm going to probably go back and put a brace on this, because I like to run braces. I'll show you that in a second. But first, let's just get this motor tightened down on there. We got to switch this back out. Nice thing too, when you run these socket head aluminum screws, pretty much everything except for your stack is going to be 2.5mm, and the top plate screws. So I'll show you in a second. So I'll put that on there. I'll probably actually run one more in there, just because that's going to allow me to make sure the motor is centered and put the wires on correctly. Alright, you can see I actually have a different color here. I have a blue one, so I'm just kind of pulling on my existing stash. So if you want to make everything matching, go on to Fastener Express. They have a bunch of different color options. I like the blue color, so I'd have all the blue on here. Actually matches up the heads-up motors, not on purpose, but it kind of works like that. So you got a nice blue build going on. It's going to put that. It's going to be nice and snug, not too hard, just enough to get the motor lined up. And while I'm here talking about braces for a second, let's pull this brace out and take a look at it. So these are the exact same braces as the SLX, and the best part about these is you can run them on the Super 50. You can run them actually in 2 configurations now. So standard SLX configuration, run them like this. Put them across the front. Actually, you want it on the bottom, obviously under the motors. But run right here, get some extra camera protection, some triangle protection from extra strength here between the arms, and same thing on the back. What you can also do is you can now run them on the sides, and that's what I've been doing. So let's pull this quad in here real quick. So I'm running these on the sides. So why is that? Is it stronger? I think it is, honestly. It takes away from camera protection. You don't have the brace right here, to block from incoming hits on your camera. But what happens, you have the brace up here, it's going to run here, it's going to run through. Remember, we have the arms here, they're connected in the middle right here. So when you get hit in the front, it takes it absorbs it, goes through here, comes through here. It kind of centralizes it in this here. It might go through the rest of the frame a little bit, through the mid plates, bottom plates, but primarily it's going to stay located in the front of the frame. Now, when you put the braces on the side, this is all theory, by the way, and it seems to be working pretty well because it's very strong, taking some very hard impacts. Put the braces on the side, and you get hit in the front on one of these, it takes it reverberates rather through, up through the brace, through the arm, and these arms are connected, right? So it's going to go through the arm, this side into this brace, same thing coming through here, arm, brace. It's going to take that hit. It's going to take the impact. It's going to go through the entire frame rather than just staying in one central region. That's a theory, of course. It's been working really well so far. I think I've only broken one of these braces on the side here. And in the front, obviously a little bit easier. People are actually double stacking the braces in the front. You don't need them as much in the back. I've seen people double stacking them in the front. It makes it very strong. Again, it adds the same amount of weight. You just leave them in the front instead of putting them on the back, and you have a lot of protection. You're probably not gonna break a brace like that. Might break them, but it's gonna be very difficult to break a brace like that. So next thing I'm gonna do here, I got the motor on here. And we're going to use zip ties. So I usually use tape, but PieFly says that zip ties are lighter. I actually did measure it. They are a little lighter, so I'm going to put these on here. I think they might hold it a little better too. So I'm going to put one at this end. Remember we were talking about the tether. So I'm going to put one at this end right here. Zip tie that right on there. And again, want that on there pretty strong because we wanted that tether action going on. So we're going to get that nice and tight. I want to leave the zip tie on the bottom. You know, maximize airflow going through here. I don't know, probably doesn't matter too much, but going to put that right on the bottom. And the other one I'm going to put right at the front here. So check this out. So I like to make sure all of them are nice and even across here, not bundled up. Make sure the outside wires on the outside, insides on the inside, and so on. And then go through here. I'm going to put the zip tie on first because it's going to be difficult to put it on and hold these wires. So what you can do is you kind of hold that, and we're going to zip tie that right on there, kind of close to the front here, or the inside of the arm. And look at that. So we have the arm zip tied right here. So when this arm breaks, hopefully it doesn't break, but it does happen, right? We're running 5-inch quads, very fast, very light. It does break, so if it does break, it should break right here. Most of the time it does. I've had them break in different places, but I did redesign the arm a little bit, and 90+% of the time they're going to break right here. And what that does, it's going to break, you're going to tear the motor away, but it's going to hold onto these zip ties. So your wires, they may rip the wires a little bit, but it's not going to pull on your ESC, and it's not going to pull on your motor. So it's going to take all the impact, force of the impact right here, put it in these two wires. It's going to hold the motor. It's not going to, the motor should stay with the frame. Hopefully, I found random motors on arms at IO. And you know, had it happen to me, motors just kind of fly off because the arm breaks. There's nothing to hold it on. This way it holds on, and it keeps you from ripping off motor pads as well as the wires. So at the base of the motor. So this should be a lot better. Obviously it's not 100% guaranteed, but it should make it a lot less likely to break something here. So I'm going to break away for just a second, come back, and then we're going to get the motor soldered on. Alright, so I got all my soldering stuff set up. I'm actually going to pull the snips here and cut these zip ties so they're not in the way. Make sure they're tight on there. On the bottom, nice and tight. Get a little snip action right there, and launch right off the table, and we are good to go. So, you know, got the zip ties on there, got the motor on there, and the next thing here, we're gonna solder it up. So I'm no expert in soldering, so take what I say with a grain of salt. This thing's still heating up, got a 3S battery on it. So, and I like to run mine at 370 degrees. You can probably see it right there, 370°C. And I like to use some flux. So I know some people like to make it hotter or don't use flux, but I like to use a little flux. So just gonna go ahead, get this off Amazon for like $5 or $6. Let me know, I can send you the link. But I'm gonna take, and we're gonna tin these all up. So just take a little bit and just kind of put it on the pads here. This is a lot. Honestly, it is fantastic that Hobby Wing has the pre soldered pigtails, because that can be a pain in the butt to get those right. So that does make it a lot easier. Obviously it doesn't, it looks like it might work in there, so I might run it, but it doesn't always work for everyone, but it works for most people. So a great move by Hobby Wing right there. And go ahead and tin this on here. So I like to just put a little in there, just let it sit up, heat the pad up, and just leave it just like that. It's going to give you a nice little shiny feel on the solder. Don't need too much. Might have put a little too much on that first pad, but again, I'm not an expert here. Right, okay, so I got the last one on here. Now actually, one more thing, I'm using, I think it's 6337, yeah, 6337 solder. It's Kester. Apparently it's the best you can get, so I got this one. It works really well, haven't had any issues with it, and you know, it's been my go-to. So gonna have that, and then what I like to do, so I know a lot of people like kind of run the motor wires up like this and kind of put them down onto the pad. I like to kind of go down and go under and kind of shoot back up, and then just have it kind of tucked in there. And maybe that's not as good, maybe that causes more failures with pads ripping off, but you know, it's worked for me so far. I've had issues with pads ripping off sometimes, but you know, haven't had it with this new setup. So let's get this going. I like to pull it down, make it nice and tight under, because we're gonna run the other wires under here. But run that in there. Just take a snip, just like that. Cut the wire where it goes off the pad there. And then what I like to do is just use my thumbnail, honestly, pull that off and go on. I like to kind of bend it to where it's going to sit on here. Maybe twist it up a little bit. Put a little bit of flux on there. You don't need too much, but now I think we got enough on there. I'm going to go ahead and I like to put a little bit on here, then hold it on the bottom of the wire and just let it heat up, and then soak the wire all the way through and get that nice shiny feel. And I'm actually going to take these bad boys right right here. And then I'm going to go ahead and hold that because I always have a bad habit of burning my fingers up. So go right there. Who else? I don't usually use this as a build service, so this is moving a little bit more than I like. But go ahead, just get it in there, let it heat up, make sure it's on there, nice and shiny, nice and good to go. So it's gonna be one solder joint, and I'm gonna do the same thing for the rest. I'll fast forward through that so you guys don't have to watch all that. Alright, so got everything tightened up a little bit, got the motor all on here. Look at that, nice and pretty, I suppose. Not the best solders, but they'll work to get the job done. After I solder everything up, I like to take some of the 70% isopropyl alcohol, put it on a Q-tip, or you can put it on a toothbrush too, just clean it off. Just make sure you try and get the rest of that solder off. You don't really need, you're not supposed to need to. It's supposed to be no clean solder and flux, but I do it anyways to clean it up, make it a little bit nicer, and get some of that residue off of there. So we have this, we're good to go. Next thing, I'd put the XT60 on there. Not going to show you guys that, it's pretty simple. Everyone probably knows how to do that, or you can look that up, but leave that on there just like that. And then next, we're going to take this Hobbywing F7 flight controller. So this is pretty cool. Obviously, it's 20 by 20 and 30 by 30. So I'm actually going to put one of these on my Street League builds next. But put this on here, and if I can get it out of here, put it in here nice and tight, I suppose. Here, let's try pulling it out, and then maybe we can pop it through the back here, see if that works. That's the key right there, that's the key. So put that on there, but they're probably going to need some wires on there. Actually, let me pull that. We need a connector, JST connector. The nice thing about this is it's a one-to-one connector. Very easy to put these together, and they made it kind of foolproof, so you shouldn't mess it up. You pull it right, there's a couple connectors in here. You just need one that's straight across for this, just the one that's straight across. Put that on there, and just pop it in. It's that easy. You can double check if you want, because voltage, ground, the main two, you want to check voltage and ground. Right there you can see VCC, so voltage is on the top side here. And then I'm just going to twist this up a little bit, and then we can plug it right into the flight control. I'm not going to do that right yet, but first things first, I actually need to pop. I'm going to leave the 30 by 30 on there, just because I can always switch it to my Street League build, which I like to run 30 by 30 on, just because I find some cheap 30 by 30 ESCs that work really well on that. So right now I'm just going to pop these, switch this over to 20 by 20, and I'll be right back. Easy enough, so pop those off, put them right on there, and then we're going to line everything up. So I just pop this on here. Make sure you have enough room here between the ESC and the FC. You actually have plenty of room because we put those nuts on there. Biggest issue is generally the connector. I like having the connector on the top of the ESC personally, just because I can slam the stack down, slam the ESC down, screw that in there, and put the FC on. Makes sure some really tight stacks. And then next thing, I'm going to probably run a hybrid on here, just because I'm still running Ghost right now. Might switch to HD0. I do have some HD0 components, but for this one, most familiar with it, so I'm just going to put the hybrid board on here. Kind of line it up with this side, because I see that the camera connectors on this side, I like to make the wire as short as possible, to an extent, right? I don't want to make it too short. We're going to apply that on and make sure there's enough room. And then you see we actually have an issue right here. We have the flight controllers. The connector on the flight controller is touching the Ghost board. Not really a huge deal. Might cause a little noise. I'll probably be fine. But honestly, I'm just going to go ahead and slap some spacers in there real quick, because that's going to be nice and easy. And it won't take too long. Actually, I'm not going to put them in there yet. Let's hold up. Going a little fast here. I'm going to put them on there. But first, let's get everything lined up, and we can solder everything on that we need to. We actually don't need a lot of wires. The nice thing about Ghost, you only need a couple wires for Ghost, and then we need a couple wires for the camera. So what we can do now, the best part about this, I completely forgot to say this, is with these nuts on here, you don't have the standoffs in the way when you're building. So you can go build everything. You have so much room. You can go back, you put the standoffs on, and now it's time. So obviously they're kind of hard to get your soldering iron in there, get your hands in there, or you can just pop these off, and you have a lot of room to build. Actually, no, to pop them off, you didn't put them on yet, but pop them off, put them back on, you're good to go. So put these on there. We would plug that in there. I'm going to leave that for now, and then we can get our camera lined up. So using a Foxeer Predator 5. This is actually the fixed mount. I think I showed you the variable mount earlier. So a variable 45 to 55 degree mount and then we have fixed mounts. I prefer fixed. We're gonna plug this wire in first. So guys are building your quad, make sure you put that in before you put it on the standoffs. There we go. Again, it goes on easier each time. So once you get on that first time, it's going to be nice and easy to get on there. And then go ahead and add a little twist in these wires. I like to run it under this little 30 by 30, and then kind of see where we're going to be. So kind of look at these pads here. So we're going to need a TX pad. So it looks like we got a TX1 right here. You can use that. We got a 5 volts. We're going to need a 5 volt and a ground. Right there, 5 volt ground. Actually, we don't need TX. I'm thinking of the VTX. I apologize. So 5 volt ground, and then we need a camera. So it looks like camera 1 and camera 2. So we'll use camera 1. We'll use a 5 volt and a ground. And I'm actually going to use these 5 volts over here, 5 volt ground, and then I'll put the probably put the VTX over on this side. So we got the 5 volt ground TX, and then we'll have the video out up here. So kind of keep everything isolated, the VTX right here. Then we're going to wrap the camera up under the flight controller right here. So we're going to go ahead, let's kind of twist these out here. I'm just going to hold on to the part because I want to leave it twisted up to the point that we had it, and that way I can kind of get everything maxed out to the right length. So first things first, I'm going to do this. So what I like to do on mine is I like to, if they're up here, it's not a big deal. If they're down here, I like to kind of pull it up, and then I'm going to kind of do it like this. So what that does is I'm going to put it like this, and I'll put hot glue on it. I glue it down, and that kind of keeps the vibration out and kind of keeps it from wiggling, and then it helps keep the wires from breaking off at the end. It's kind of a big pain on these little wires. They like to break off. I had that happen a couple times yesterday while flying, and that's because I was trying something different. Did not work. So we're going to go back to this and twist them up to here, and then we're going to pull it out, solder it right here. So let me cut that where I like it, and then we will solder that on, and then later we'll glue it down. So probably, I don't know if I'll be able to show you how that's done. See if I'm in a different spot than I usually will. So see if I can pull power over here and get that done. So then the ground and the 5 volts, run them together. Just put them like that. So we got camera, 5 volts, ground, and we'll cut those. And I'm going to pull this back off because it's a little bit easier to solder. I don't need to pull that back off just like that. And don't need to have it all entangled up while we solder these on here. So let's go ahead and again, just pull a little bit off. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and we're going to put this on, a little bit of flux on there. Same thing on just going to do the 3 pads we need. Actually, I'm going to do all the pads we need for right now. So 5 volts. Then we got video out. We got TX1. Got 5 volts, ground, and then we got camera 1. So nice and easy. Just gonna need those 7 pads right there, and let me let this thing heat up again real quick, and then we'll tin those. We'll tin the wires, and then we'll pop them on. Should be nice and quick here after this thing heats up. We'll just speed the video up real quick. Alright, so that takes a little bit of time with a 3S battery, but we got there. We don't need a lot on these, so I'm just going to go ahead and get a little bit of solder. I'm just going to kind of poke that on there. And then let's go to camera 1. Got a little more solder on there. Get video out. TX1. A little more solder right there. 5 volt and ground. And these are cool because it's got a 10 volt out, so you can easily run your HD0 VTX on it unless you're running obviously the new whip board with 5 volt out, but I got a 10 volt pad for HD0, or if you're running DJI. I know a lot of people are running DJI, probably not as much on race builds, but kind of a good all around VTX, or not VTX, FC to be honest. There we go. So just pop that on there, nice and clean. Next one is going to be the 5 volt, so we're going to pop that 5 volt on there. And a lot of people have been, I've heard people complaining about this MPU 6500 gyro they have on here. I've run it a little bit. It feels pretty good. I am having issues with my M32 build that I'm running this on, so I haven't got a good chance to run it with a with a good clean flight yet. So when it's flying well, the M32 is flying well, but it does have issues flipping out. So that's not the MPU 6500. I know that because I switched to an MPU 6000 to see if that was the issue, and it was not. So, and obviously, as of this video, just saw Hyper post a #1 time running an MPU 6500. So obviously, it's working, right? It's working. So. Next step here, we're going to go ahead and we are going to wire up the hybrid board. So I'm just going to throw this on here real quick, and obviously it's going to change a little bit with the spacers, but not enough to change our solder points here. Oops, let me get this connector out, camera connector, pull it on there, and then we got a fresh, see if I got a fresh wire here to use, and here it is. Look at that, so brand new. Wire. It's actually an older board. I don't even know this hybrid board works, to be honest. So I'm going to throw this on here. It's really easy to change out hybrid board. So if it doesn't work, I'll just put a different one on there, or maybe you know, put like tracer or something. So you can see here we have our telemetry wire. This is going to the TX. We have our, this is like a, actually these don't even line up with it. I know this by heart. So we got our voltage, ground, video. Green goes to TX. Blue is not used, so we can just pull it off. And what I like to do is pretty simple. You just pull out a hobby knife, and let me get one real quick. Pull out a hobby knife, and then you just locate the blue wire here. See, it's the second one in, so we're gonna pull up under this, and then I'm slowly, once it gets under there, I'm gonna slowly pull that blue wire out. Just like that, nice and easy. And then I like to push it back in there because actually I kind of messed that up, but it's good to go. Push that back in there, looks nice and clean. Reuse this wire. This is a nice wire. These quality wires on here for the most part. So I'm gonna keep that on there, and then let's go back, put the hybrid board on. We're gonna put the connector in there. We don't really need much, so probably need, I think our longest one was going to be the video, so we're going to kind of pair off that, probably something like that. And I'll put it in there, and then I'll twist it up, and then I like to put it kind of, where are we, probably like right here, right, for length. Okay, so it doesn't really make sense what I'm saying right now, but I'll show you in a second. So we're going to take this, put it right there, and it's going to be coming up right here, so that gives you plenty of room. And then we're going to twist it around to make it nice and tight, and then I'm going to put this across here like this, because it's going to have hot glue on it, so it's going to hold it and keep from vibrating the wire loose, because you know, the solder point right here where it solders, where you have the solder on there to the bare wire, is actually the weakest point, right? So that's where it's going to break. If it does break, we want to make sure that takes as much stress as possible out of that point so it doesn't break. So I think this is going to be a good starting point right here. I'm going to cut it right here. I like to leave these a little bit longer because they do generally end up breaking eventually, even if you have the hot glue on there. And found that little point I was cutting. And that way, you know, when they do break, I have a little extra wire, so I can keep just cutting the wire and soldering it instead of having to do a brand new wire on there or extending it, because that's kind of a pain in the butt. So I'm going to pull it around because it's easier for me being right-handed to do it this way. Okay, you got the solder. Again, just touch this here. And it doesn't look like it, but it's on there pretty good actually. So we're going to leave that one like that. And now that we have the longest wire on there, kind of gauge the rest of the wires. I like to make them the same length or similar, because that way they'll twist up very nice. And you have a nice even twist, nice even length to them when you go to plug it into your hybrid board. Clean this off real quick. And then just need a little bit, not much. And then go in there. And then just touch it. Good to go. Nice and clean. Nice and clean. And the ground and the voltage, probably gonna just cut these at the same time, because they're gonna pretty much always be right next to each other, right? Unless you have a odd bill, or maybe a 5-volt pad went out or something. But and cut those through, and then save those for later. You know, always have good wires whenever you need to extend something or solder something else up. And then we're going to go ahead. Oop. Yep, there we go. Just ripped a little bit off there. Put some solder on it. Oh, these ones, oops, I messed up. I should have went around back. And since I left I should have went around back, because then I can still keep these you kind of pull them around and get the glue on them. So I'm still going to do that actually. I got plenty of wire left on the other two of the red, yellow, and green wire. So I'm going to go back and I'm just going to take this. I don't know if I actually tin that one, but it's not a big deal. These will, be nice and good sitting in here. You gotta put enough solder on the pads. There we go. Got the solder on the pads. So I'm gonna pull this out. Take these red and black and push these down, and then take these. And I like to twist it first. So you twist it first and twist it all up. Actually worked out quite well, so it's gonna be nice, even though I kind of messed up on that, but we're good to go. So I got that twisted, and then we'll have this for the camera. I'm gonna take this and pull this one kind of down under, and you can see we're gonna try and put these as flat as possible, because then we're gonna put glue on it. So I'm gonna go ahead and put some glue on this, and I'll be right back with you. So my glue gun is going to reach here. I did try it once and I messed up. So we're going to take 2 right now. You guys don't know that, but take 2 here. And we're going to go ahead and push these down as much as possible. Try and get them nice and flat. And then take the glue gun and just kind of put it across, back and forth. I might have to go back, let that cool just a little bit, and we'll go back and push it down, get a little height in there. I like to keep it as low as possible because we don't want it to run into the hybrid board. And then it actually looks pretty good right there. And then let's go back on this spot, and it's still a little hot, so I'm gonna let it cool down just a little bit more. There we go. I think that's good. Push that down just like that. It's gonna create a nice flat piece. It's gonna pull the wires together. You can see when it pulls the wires, it's gonna pull on the glue, and it's not gonna get to the breaking point, the weak point of the wire. So mix it nice and flat on there. Maybe not the best solution, but it does get the job done, and it's really easy to replace, right? You need to go back and just solder a wire or something. You literally just go in there and you pull the glue off, and you can put the glue back on and cut. It's got a little bit on the gummy there, so I'm gonna just snip that away just a little bit, and we're good to go right there. So got that on there. Next thing we're gonna do is actually we need to put the camera on. Before we do that, because we don't want to pull the camera back off now, we're gonna take each of our socket head screws, M4 screws, or if you have the countersunk. My mic just turned off, so we're going to go back here. If you have the countersunk version, put that on there. That one you have to be very careful with. This one you don't have to be as careful with. Just put these on here. What we're going to do is we're going to tighten these standoffs down in very tight. And that just makes it easy. So when they're tightened in there, obviously kind of double nets, it adds a little bit more strength. It makes that screw not want to loosen up once again. And then what we do here is we just take out a 3mm driver. Obviously I prefer it to be all 2.5, but it didn't work out that way. And you're going to take it and just gonna kind of go in there, tighten it down really tight. It doesn't have to be super tight, but get that in there past snug for sure. Tighten. This one's having issues. See if I can get that thread in there. There we go. Okay, just had a little burr on there, so we got it past. And this actually sets your screws. These are aluminum screws too. This is a nice thing. So when you're putting these in here first, make sure you use all 4 of them, because it's going to set the screw, remove any burrs or anything that got on the standoffs or the screws during production, and you're going to have a nice clean setup. So let's tighten those down in there. And when you take them off, make sure you use a pair of pliers, because you don't want to loosen the standoff back up. You want to make sure this pulls off nice and easy. Leaves the standoff on there, don't have any issues. Oh, see, did not pull it off right. Did not have a good grip on it. Let me tilt it up sideways. That probably is a better way to do it. Usually I just do this in my lap, to be honest, so it makes it a lot easier. Put that on there. There we go. Now they're popping off nice and easy. And we're going to be good to go here in one hot second. Look at that. Put that over here, I guess. I'm just going to pull these all the way off. We don't need them right now. We're very close though. Again, it's a very quick build, especially with Go, so I don't have to do a lot of extra soldering. Okay, so put that on there. Again, nice and even. Actually, that's looking pretty good, so I might just leave the wires in there just how they are. And then I'm gonna go and we're gonna need some spacers for our hybrid board. I don't know where they are right now, so I'm just gonna put this on here. You guys know we'll put some spacers. They don't really add much weight, probably like 1/10 of a gram for all of them, if that. So put this on here. Again, make sure this is nice and twisted up. And pop that in there nice and easy. And I'm going to line this kind of under. This is for the camera again. Line this under the flight controller. Plug the camera in. And oh, I almost forgot to plug the flight controller in. Look at that. So plug the flight controller in. And see if I can sneak it under the hybrid board here. Oh yes, perfect, perfect. And it's a really tight build. I think I could run this whole 3 stack without these nuts in it, and then we could just run the slam version. Let me pull a standoff out real quick, see if I can find one, and then we can see if we can actually run this without these nuts. You know, that's a nice slam version with a full 3 stack in it, 3 boards in the stack, and then we're good to go. All right, I found a standoff, so I'm just gonna do this for measurement purposes. And oh, look at that, we are actually good. It's gonna be real tight on the top plate. So you can see this is the top of the standoff. Top plate will be right here. Even have room for a nut. Probably have to use a 20mm screw to do this, but again, look at how tight that is. Nice and tight. Again, we have to raise this up a little bit just because of the spacers we're gonna put in there, but that's probably, don't even need much. That's probably enough right there. Let's see. Yeah, so we have plenty of room. We could definitely run this with a slam stack. I'm going to leave it like this because having a little extra room is nice, having some overhead here, because when you hit a gate hard, you know, if you break a top plate, it's going to go into your stack. This way, having that overhead, it's not going to slam into your stack. I actually hit a gate full send right into the top plate. It did break the top plate a little bit. It did not harm the stack. The camera mount broke, and everything else is good. And that's actually one thing I wanted to tell you guys about. I completely forgot. So using nylon camera mounts, these are very, very nice to use. You know, the biggest reason is they're stronger than TPU. They do break easier, but that's the best part, because TPU, when you're running a TPU camera mount, right, the TPU is going to flex. So when you take a hit, see, this is this is TPU. This is you know, probably a little bit extreme, but you know, you hit. It's gonna hit, it's gonna flex, it's gonna move. The camera's gonna take the impact of that. The TPU absorbs a little bit, but not a lot. When you hit with a nylon camera mount, the nylon's gonna take the impact, and then it's gonna break, right? So it's gonna break on impact, and then it's gonna absorb all the impact. It's not gonna go into the camera mount, which is very, very nice. I think I have one right here actually. Look at that, broke right here. Camera's perfectly fine. Put it in another camera mount, it's still flying today. And that was a full send hit into a steel gate with did have a pool noodle over it, but still steel under that, so hit pretty hard. Broke a top plate. Everything else survived. Actually, a standoff. Did lose a standoff too. Everything else survived. So good to go. Just tuck everything in there. Tuck the wires in there. And what I like to do is take. See if I don't know if I got any out. Yeah, I'll pull some out. I like to take these nylon nuts. And I only like to put 2 on. You can put 4 on if you want. I think 2 is enough. And then I like to pick a corner. I usually pick a corner away from the USB because it's going to push down. I want to push down away from the USB and be able to add a little bit of strength on there. Let's put that in there. Yep, just tighten that on just a little bit. And then I do the opposite. Always do the opposite corner. It's going to give you the most equal footing down there. I mean, if you're worried about it, if you think you need a little bit extra tightness on these standoff screws to hone your tune in, you can put 4 on. It just takes a little bit longer to take them off is the issue. So if you work on your quad, you just put 2 on there, it makes it a little faster. Again, this is on there pretty tight. And we have the nuts on top of the ESC too. So got these on there really tight, really nice. I shouldn't have issues with stuff loosening up. And then what we can do on one thing here, I almost forgot, this is very important. We can get to our zip ties. Alright, I had to find these for a second, but put these zip ties. So what this does is you put this one in here, kind of bring it up. It's going to be a little difficult because the cap on, so I don't usually run the cap right there, but this is what I use these holes for. I use this for strain relief on the XT60. So see if I can get this to come through here. Oh, there we go, got it through. And I put through backwards, that figures. Happens more often than it should. It's 50-50 chance, and I know which direction it should go, but it still happens. So see, and a good little trick, if you put that little bend in it too, it'll kind of go the right direction. So put this in here, put this on here just like this. Not going to tighten it down too much, and then you loop another one through around here, and then you around the zip tie, and just like that, and you tighten it down, and it gives you strain relief. I'm going to hold off on that for a second because I do not have the XT60 on there yet, but let's get the XT60 on there, and it'll be a breeze to put that through. So we'll do that, and then we'll get everything else. But while I'm doing that, I'm going to show you this real quick. So next step we got to do is put the antenna. We have this lollipop right here. So see if that's going to reach all the way over there. I think it will, so that'll be perfect. So I'm going to put this on here, make sure everything lines up, get this in, and a little tight. We'll just put it right through here. It should be fine. I can pop it right on there, as long as you're not going across this portion, because that's where it starts to cause issues too. So I like to put this on here, and then E6000 glue, I think, or tape. Honestly, I just put tape on it. I'll show you how I do that real quick. Go ahead and start. I like to start right here, and then wrap it around, and then do another wrap, but move it over one, so it's all the way over here, and then pull down hard on it, so it adds as much strength in there, and then kind of puts some strain relief. It's not looking as good as I usually like, so I'll probably go back and redo that, or I'll put some glue on it. But for right now, we're just gonna leave it like that, so I can show you guys the next steps. Then I can run this one under here. I like to run these, either run it out on the arm. I like to run it on top, to be honest, just because it gets away from the carbon nylon X plate, so it kind of gets you a good signal up there. If you're on a carbon fiber plate, it might hurt a little bit. You can run it out on the arm, but we'll just put it right there. And then which plate should we use? Let's use the probably use this because it's an analog build, and then we'll see how light we can get this thing. So put this on here, just like that. And then I like to put it right in the middle, and then go ahead and zip tie. The nice thing is when you run these antenna mounts, like it really sticks right in there, so you can mount things on there. You don't have to have the screws on there yet. Just put it right in there, get a zip tie, and depends on how you do it. Some people do it. I'm gonna do it like we're doing a lightweight build, so I'm gonna do it like this. There we go. Put it just like that. Good to go. And then if you want to put you guys did vote. We got the taller one of these. A little rare. I think these might cause a little noise on the gyro. I think it was the pitch, maybe the roll axis. But look, that's pretty tall right there. About 2 inches tall. So there shouldn't be too much noise. It should be fine. You guys we'll test it and see what we find out. But it looks like it's pretty good. I've been running the shorter version, as you can see on this one. That one's actually been pretty good. I thought I saw a little noise the other day, but I looked back today and it looks like it might have been. I think it was okay. So I don't think it's causing too much noise. But again, I'll probably run it with. We're gonna put it together without the fin on there for right now, because I'm going for an ultralight build. See how light we can get this thing, and kind of go from there. So we're gonna put this on, put these screws on there. They're nice and tight, so that is that. And the cool thing about this, check this out, this camera mount is, this top plate locks right in there, just like on the SLX. So when you hit the camera, it's going to push in the top plate. It's not going to go into your stack and kill your stack. I've had that happen on a few other frames. I haven't had that happen on SLX or on a Super 50 yet. So put that on there. Battery strap, super simple. Check this out. So obviously GemFan, gotta rep GemFan. Best props in the game. Have these nice Kevlar straps. If you don't have one of these, I encourage you to get one of these. Slide that right in there. Again, it's so easy. Don't have to take any plates off. Put it in there. Don't have to loosen them up. Slides right in just like that. Everything's already secured. Put that on there, and then you're good to go. Let me go back real quick. Let me put this XT60 on here. We're gonna get a full weight on this thing. We'll see how much it weighs. So got the XT60 on there. Again, this is kind of a pain in the butt, so I definitely would not recommend having putting the XT60 on after your stack is in there. Put it on there first, and then get everything good to go. So let's put this on the scale though. I think we have everything on here. I'd put 2 motor screws in there. That's pretty standard. I'll probably run 3, but especially the braces. But put 2 on there for right now. Let's see where we come in. And then 236. So not too bad. A little heavier than I like, but than I'd like to see here. But I mean, honestly, it's not a huge deal. I can show you in a second how we can save some more weight. But so 252 total. That's pretty good. Would probably run it right there and not complain a second. I mean, see a lot of you see Minchan running, I think 240 grams or less, but I don't think 10 grams, 15 grams makes a big difference in these, to be honest. Especially, mostly it's gonna be pilot skill. So I'll show you a few ways to save some weight here. So first thing, obviously, battery strap. This is a big, thick battery strap. Not really gonna break too easily, but it's obviously pretty heavy. I mean, look at this thing. This is. No, I'm not even gonna show up. Let's bring it. We'll bring the smaller scale on here, and we'll see how much this battery strap weighs. So if you can read that, 8.02, that's an 8 gram battery strap. That's pretty heavy. I have an RDQ strap. It's a little thin one. These will break eventually, but it saves like 3 grams. So if you especially if you put on the 20 by or 15 millimeter strap, it's going to save you more. I think to get down as low as around 3 grams I've seen. So it's going to save you a good 5 grams right there. So we're going to save 3 grams here. And then another thing is the antenna. So I got one of these big old light pops on here. Let's see. That's probably not going to go up here. So that's going to be actually about 6 grams. It did come up. So it's going to put it on here. We'll maybe it won't come up on here. So we'll just do the math. We'll take away 6 grams. Oh. There we go. So we're already down to 234 here. Take away 6 grams. Put away on this bad boy. You can put something lighter on there. It didn't even change. So scale's probably not the most accurate, but essentially, this is gonna get us back to take away those 6 grams. We're gonna be about 246. So could do a few more things. We could probably get down to that 240 gram weight, but I don't think we need to be that low. So 246 grams, 250 grams. Obviously 246 is with a smaller antenna, just zip tied up here. I know a lot of guys do that without having a full mount, but again, full mount in this antenna probably adds about 3 or 4 grams. Well worth it. Get a nice strong mount on there. Probably put a fin on there. Let's see how much this fin weighs too. That's about 4 grams, so might be a little overstated on there, but again, 4 grams, actually 2.3. It's obviously not a very accurate scale, but we're right around the 250 gram range with props on there. 2 grams for the fin on there, probably well worth it. You get flipped upside down. You definitely want to be able to flip your quad back over and keep flying again, especially at IO, which is the next race. This is probably going to be flown at IO primarily. I'm probably not going to fly it much before then, other than a few test flights, and then we'll be good to go. So. Got this on there, about 250 grams, less if we use a smaller antenna or even use a whip for GQ or something, but right now we are good to go. So guys, have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook, SpeedSourceFPV@gmail.com, and cool. Thanks for tuning in. Happy flying, guys.